Welcome to the lessons on narrative genres. What is a genre to begin? A genre is the different types of book based on style and even the purpose. Um, when I think of it as similar to music genres. Just like you have rock, country, and hip hop, you have fantasy, mystery, and horror. So the first type of genre we'll look at is fantasy. This is a story that includes elements that are impossible, such as talking animals or magical powers. I think of Percy Jackson, The Lightning Thief, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. When I think of fantasy, I always think of the characters being very different than we know of as normal. They might have special powers, like wizards, or they may even have unusual pets, like dragons. Science fiction uses science and technology. Um, Oftentimes, it's some kind of scientific breakthrough or technology that creates a whole new world. If I see a robot, then I think sci-fi. If I hear about an evil scientist trying to build a destructive bomb to take over the world, I usually think sci-fi. If I see a spaceship in space, I usually think sci-fi. Historical fiction. Historical fiction uses real historic events but puts fictional characters in them. A famous example would be the book and movie Boy in Striped Pajamas. It takes place during the Second World War, but the characters, the young boys, are not real. They didn't actually exist. So the characters are fictional, but the timeline is real. Realistic fiction. This is probably what people might read the most. It's a story with made-up characters, but it's realistic. There's no flying animals, there's no wizards, there's nothing that doesn't happen in our everyday world. A lot of times, realistic fiction will be about something normal, going to school, dealing with relationships. Next one, mystery. Mystery is a suspenseful story about a puzzling event that is not solved until the end of the story. When I think of mystery, I always think of a murder mystery. Someone gets murdered, and then the characters have to slowly figure out who did it. And there's a lot of twists and turns and evidence that pops up throughout. I think of Sherlock Holmes. And this next one is biography. Now, biography can be tricky because it is the story of a real person's life, but it was not written by that person. Uh, Biographies are all over. You see them everywhere, especially if you go to the library. You can find biographies on anyone from Abraham Lincoln to Martin Luther King to Jay-Z. Uh, Biographies are common. The next one, connected, is autobiography. It's the story of a real person's life that is actually written by that person. So Benjamin Franklin wrote his own autobiography. Malcolm X wrote his own autobiography. And these are interesting because you get to see the person's feelings and thoughts why these events were happening. So the difference between a biography and an autobiography is that an autobiography was written by the person that lived it. So to review, we got fantasy, which is very unrealistic, a different world. Oftentimes we'll have characters with special powers. Mystery is when a character is trying to figure out something that happened. They'll usually use evidence and observe the world around them to build a case. Biography is a life story of a person. but it is not written by that person, which is different than autobiography, which is a life story, but it is written by the person who lived it. That brings us to historical fiction. That would be fiction that takes place in a real time period, but the characters within it are not real. They are made up. Science fiction. That would be fiction that really focuses on technology and scientific breakthroughs. The most common science fiction will have space travel, robots, uh, technology that's destructive to the world. And realistic fiction, that's the one that is just like us. You know, they might be going through a relationship, they might be having problems with their family. Uh, Basically, realistic fiction is fiction that is very similar to real life. All right, so watch this video as many times as you need and move on to the practice when you're ready.